All right. Hey, everybody. It's Luke. I just wanted to touch on something I saw in our Facebook group about whether or not what plan to choose. So we had a gentleman use the Hanson's Marathon Method beginner plan and trained for Austin in February, which is a pretty hilly course. Sounds like he did pretty well compared to what he was looking for as a time. And then he just really wants to know what to do next. And so he's choosing between a beginner, doing the beginner again, 18-week, 5-day plan, or the alternator plan, or jumping up to the advanced plan. So he's getting a lot of feedback, which is to be expected. But give you my 2 cents on the issue, I would say for a lot of people, don't look at whether the plan says beginner or advanced. Look at kind of the mileage of the plan, the peak volume, the beginning volume, the amount of work you're doing. We've touched on that quite a bit, so I'm not going to go too far into that. And I'm also going to say you really want to maximize where you're at, right? So if you're using a plan and you're continuing to see growth from that plan, keep using that plan, maybe make some minor tweaks. But if you're still seeing development out of the plan that you're using, continue to use that plan. Don't max out too soon, right? So if he uses the advanced, where does he go from there? Where does he go from there? After that, right? So you've got to be careful. And then you're going to get to a point where you've peaked out as far as what you can do, but you've never really let yourself fully develop at the lower levels to get the most out of the training plan. Um, you will reach a point where, yes, more volume is going to be more beneficial for you. However, if you do that volume, but you can't match that with things like recovering and making sure that you're able to tolerate that volume, whether it's through a work schedule or whatever the case is, it doesn't necessarily make sense to go all in on a bigger plan, because it's not going to help you if you can't recover from the work that you're doing, right? So you've got to keep that in mind as well. He was getting a lot of advice on just doing it, or he was not getting. He was asking whether or not he should start with the advanced plan, and then if that was too much, scale back to the beginner plan. I personally don't like that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you start out with a more advanced plan, you're doing a lot more work early, especially if he's comparing Hanson's Marathon, the beginner plan versus the advanced plan. The first 10 weeks is really where the vast majority of the difference is with that plan, right? And so if he's jumping in and doing a lot more work, a little bit more volume, stuff like that, over the first 8-10 weeks, he's not going to notice it until he gets to 8 to 10 weeks into the plan, right? And when he gets to that point, what's he going to scale back to? Because they're essentially the same plan. So he's probably going to dig a hole, potentially dig a hole that he can't get out of. And that's what we don't want to see. I would much rather have him start off lighter work. And if it truly is too easy, then add more. Because if he gets to the point where he's 8, 10, 12 weeks in and we add a little bit more work, even if it is just a little bit too much, he's not going to be doing it long enough to where it's going to be super detrimental. He's going to get to that taper and then he's going to be able to bounce back from it. But if you've spent the first 2-3 months of that plan doing too much work and then you don't realize it until you get to that last stretch where we want the most work to be done, you really set yourself up to just be in a hole that you can't get out of. And you're either going to have to take time off, drastically scale back, which at a time where we want to be at our peak volume and our peak intensity. And it's just the opposite really of where you want to be at that point. So that would be my take on it. Right. And so again, I think if you're going to be in a situation like that, maximize where you're at a certain level. And if you're continuing to see improvement, do that improvement. A lot of times, if people want to add stuff, it's going to be more like adding core, adding mobility, adding strength, getting better with nutrition, practicing their fueling more. That's where they really should put their efforts in doing more of. And then once that's maxed out and that's gotten taken care of, and you still feel like you need more, then bump up the volume. So that's how I would approach it. I think a lot of people go through that. I see that a lot of times where people do the beginner plan and they just automatically want to jump up to the advanced plan the next time around, and it might not be the best jump for that person. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about what you're going to be doing next time. Keep that at heart, and hopefully that will help you get into the right plan, because ultimately we want to see you run faster, not just more. All right, I'll talk to you later. See ya.